Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening. Lately, I've been doing a lot of introspection. I've kind of been forced to do a lot of introspection because of the relationships that I maintain in my position as abbot and in the position of being a Zen priest or a Zen teacher. I have relationships with every student, every member of the Zen Center. It's important, I think, to remember that those two terms, member and student, the way that we've structured our Zen Center here are actually synonymous. The members here, part of becoming a member here is going through the Shokenko ceremony, becoming a student formally of me as a teacher. I also have relationships with other teachers in other Zen centers, and I'm often in discussions with them about what's going on at their center and how things are going. I'm connected as well with the American Zen Teachers Association, which is a collegial, chat room for people who have been authorized as teachers in their various traditions. It's important to say that the AZTA is not a professional association of any kind. It's just a mailing list. So if you see people saying, well, I'm a member of the AZTA, it just means that they got onto a really selective mailing list. And I guess the point of why I'm talking about these things is that we have to really recognize and realize where we are in the grand scheme of the Zen tradition sometimes. I use the word Zen, or the term Zen tradition, like that means something, and I think that it's one of those things that's really nebulous, and it's like it's like a glob of glue that you sort of throw out into the middle of the room and say, Zen tradition. And everyone around the room has their own idea of what that means. And because it's such a nebulous, sticky thing, sort of whatever it is that you believe about it will stick. So I wanted to sort of talk about my perspective on what the Zen tradition is and what it is that we're doing as an organization, what it is that I'm doing as a teacher, what you're doing as students, and how that all fits together. We use the term tradition because we maintain this form which has a kind of a traditional feel to it, a ritual feel to it. And I think a lot of people really appreciate that or like that about it. So as people in North America, we come to this and we say, oh, this is a tradition, and it's really old-fashioned. It's an old tradition. But I can tell you that Japanese people who come to North America and practice in North American Zen centers, for the most part, go, wow, why did you change everything? This isn't at all how we do it in Japan. So the idea that we're just consistently carrying forward this ancient form and way of doing things there are some aspects that are true about it, but we're doing the best that we can to carry forward some choreography or a form or a structure that we're interpreting from an entirely different culture. And so we have to really kind of grok that. The other thing that I always find very interesting is that we put so much emphasis on maintaining this tradition, and we chant ancestor lineages, but one of the big sort of selling points, if you will, about Zen is that there's no dogma. And so we have to really sort of wrestle with that idea as well, that whatever it is that we're doing, even the most ancient, mysterious form, we can't hold it like like it has its own meaning, like it has its own independent sort of like holiness or anything like that. Because this is Zen, vast emptiness, nothing holy. Our tradition, our true tradition in Zen practice is the tradition of awakening, is the tradition of awareness and mindfulness and unification and transformation. And all of the traditions that we have, the forms and the rituals and all that kind of stuff, are all pointed at this awakening. But it's important, I think, for us not to mistake the cart for the horse, and not to think of the tradition or the forms as what we're doing and forget about the activity of awakening. So over hundreds or thousands of years, really, the form of practice has changed. The context of practice has changed. The gender and the skin color and the hair and every aspect of who it is that's doing practice and where it is that they're doing practice, it's all changed. And for the most part, my feeling is that there's been a lot of attention paid to maintaining the genuine tradition of awakening. The school that I was trained in, Rinzai-ji, that I was ordained in originally, under Joshi Sasaki Roshi, lacked a lot of things. And so as a person who was ordained, you could go around and saying, what does it mean to be ordained? What is a monk? And then there were all these sort of mysterious delineations, like there were things called lay monks. And you could say, well, what's the difference between a monk and a lay monk? And you could ask 5 different people and they'd give you 5 different answers. And the only person who could really give you a definitive answer was the Roshi. But he could also change his answer any time that he saw fit. So, as a monk going forward and trying to figure out how to be a monk or a priest, how to figure out how to do Zen practice or start a sitting group or a Zen center or a Zen temple, there were no courses on how to do that. There was no formation practice. There was no seminary or anything like this. It was just, you had this ceremony, you expressed this genuine desire and intention to be a monk. So you had the ceremony, and then it was sort of like, okay, go. And based on an individual's skills or propensities or what have you, the group or their endeavor in Zen practice either really, succeeded or failed. You never knew if you were doing something right or wrong because nobody was really looking over your shoulder too much, and nobody was telling you or making suggestions about how to do things. Actually, you could always know when you did something wrong because they would come down on you like a like a ton of bricks without any kind of warning. That's the way I was trained. If you were doing something right, nothing is said. And if you make a mistake, then it's the stick. That's the sort of school. It wasn't always actually the stick, but certainly you'd have a piece torn out of you. I didn't and I don't really care for this way of development or training. And when I talk about realizing where we are in the grand scheme of Zen, the Zen tradition, I think it's important for us to really understand that we're standing in a threshold. We're midwives. The Zen tradition is new to North America. It reminds me of Western culture as a whole coming to North America. For many years, the story that we have, or the history that we have about people like Columbus, is that they're great discoverers, great pioneers, great adventurers, and the stories that are told about them are heroic and romantic and wonderful. But as the sort of excitement settles down and we begin to actually take a look at these people, we say, oh my God, what these people did and the justifications for what they did were monstrous. Likewise, when we look across the spectrum of the pioneers of Zen, whether that's Joshu Sasaki or Edo Shimano, absolutely they did some amazing things. When we look at the practice that they established, when we look at some of the resources that they built and created, it's truly amazing. But we also have to take in the whole panorama of the impact of these human beings on the people that they practiced with, on the cultures within Zen centers that they created, and on the whole tradition, the whole legacy that they brought with them. Some of it is wonderful. Even in my own life, in my own practice, I can look at things that I was taught or experienced at Mount Baldy or Rinzai-ji and in practice with Sasaki Roshi, that I would die to uphold. But there are also aspects of that training and of the whole experience and culture that I really wish could physically be cut out. But this is the whole package that we get. This is the whole tradition. And this is the exercise of practice, of Zen practice. Our life has this two sides. Always I'm talking about these two sides, the activity of plus and the activity of minus. Always I'm talking about the capacity of a human being being boundless, but boundless for both being of benefit to all beings, as well as creating tremendous suffering through the pursuit of self-satisfaction. And we have to always open ourselves and accept that as our human nature. And our practice, this image that comes up in the old sutras and in the Rinzai Roku, I talk about it sometimes, is this Hamsa Raja, the king goose who, if you mix milk and water, they become a completely homogeneous solution. And it's only the king goose that, when drinking this solution, can actually separate the milk from the water and only drink one. And this is our practice. We have this verse, purification. In the past I have caused much harm. My greed, anger, and folly arise from the beginningless past, yet they spring from this body, this mouth, and this mind. I alone am responsible for the suffering they have brought, and I hereby renounce and relinquish them all. This verse, I think, is really a fundamental aspect of Zen practice, because it's something that in each moment of our lives we have to sort of hold close to our awareness, close to our consciousness, close to the activity that we engage in life. I think if we're to engage in this practice, we have to always accept that we're never getting it right. We're always engaging to the best of our capacity in this moment, based on the information and knowledge and wisdom that we have available to us right now. And that's as good as it gets. Tomorrow we'll have different information. Tomorrow we'll have different knowledge. Tomorrow we'll have different experiences that will make us look back sometimes on what we did today and shake our heads. I don't know, I think anybody that has children looks back at what we've done as parents and we want to vomit. And we just say, oh my God, how did I ever think that that would be helpful? But we can't go back. We can't undo the things that we've done. We can't, and it's not beneficial in this moment to berate ourselves and get lost in all of the missteps that we've taken. Likewise, we can't marry ourselves to the actions that we've taken in the past simply because they're the actions that we took in the past or that our predecessors took in the past. We have to use that awareness, that awakening, to investigate our actions, to shed light on the things that we do, to gain the benefit of learning from our own experiences and transform how we go forward into the future. And that's the way that I read this verse of purification. In the past I have caused much harm. My greed, anger, and folly arise from the beginningless past, yet they spring from this body, this mouth, and this mind. So, all of us, based on our experiences and based on our upbringing and based on our culture and our society, we have habit patterns that establish. We do things that way because that's the way that they were done. We all fit right into the ruts that our parents and our schools and our jobs and our friends help to provide and sustain for us. And that's not something that we should be self-abusive about. That's the way it works. But when we begin to take practice up, when we begin to engage in this path of awakening, the fundamental shift that takes place is that we say, yeah, that's where the momentum is. This is the path of least resistance a lot of the time, is to just follow along with tradition, the way that things have always been done. But when we begin to look around and see, and not just see, but deeply grasp, deeply perceive our relationship to the experience of this activity, our relationship to the unfolding of this cosmos, our relationship to the suffering or well-being of others, there's this shift that takes place where we realize sometimes just going along with the flow is just flat out irresponsible. By submitting, by giving up our agency, our own awareness, our own responsibility in life, that surrender to make things easier or to keep things familiar creates suffering. Those words that we spoke that were hurtful came out of this mouth. The actions that we took, the things that we did, happened through this body. And the intentions that we embodied or motivated or thought or perpetuated or ruminate over come from this mind. It's not the fault of my parents anymore. It's not the fault of my society or my culture. When I turn on the autopilot, when I just run in the ruts, when I just follow along because it's easier, that's a choice. That's something that I'm choosing to do because it's less work. It's less difficult. So, this body, this mouth, and this mind, I alone am responsible for the suffering they have brought. We recognize that single concept, that the choice, it's a choice to follow along with those habits. It's a choice to keep doing what we're doing. There's a lot of weight behind it, absolutely. I'm not going to tell you that habits and familiarity and wanting to avoid conflict are not powerful, powerful things. Absolutely. I go back to Ontario where I grew up, and I can literally, physically feel this sucking energy into a bunch of really unhealthy ways of being. And I have to hang on to practice. I have to hang on to a different way of being. And I have to look for support through Sangha, through other examples, because after years of practice, when I get into that environment, I can't sustain it on my own. Little bits start breaking off and falling away. So I have to keep coming back to practice. I have to keep coming back to this attitude, this perspective, in order to just keep going little bit by little bit. Okay. I was just getting started, but that's essentially what I really wanted to get to, or what I wanted to talk about, is that as a community and as an organization and as a group of people, as a Sangha engaged in this practice, things are never going to be written in stone. And as the abbot, all I can do is respect what has come from the past and apply the wisdom and experience and insight that I developed through practicing with you and through practicing with this broader spectrum of individuals, to learn from what I'm seeing, to learn from what I'm experiencing, and to apply it to what's going on here. So the kind of sits we have on Sundays, or where I'm going or I'm not going, or even how I'm engaging with individual students changes, not because I want an easier job of it or anything like that. Because a lot of the time, the changes that I make, the choices that I make in relationship, aren't based on things that are easy for me or comfortable for me. Always what's comfortable is to just keep doing what you've been doing, because it's comfortable. But when I start to see that boundaries need to be clarified, relationships need to transform, structures need to be put in place in order to sustain a growing and deepening community, my obligation as a teacher is to do those things. Often they make me uncomfortable. Oftentimes, certainly at the beginning of starting a center, starting a practice group, I want to be friends with everybody. I want to have parties and have all the practitioners who are also my friends come to my parties. But the truth of the matter is that in this relationship we have a practice covenant, or we have a practice contract, in which when push comes to shove, I'm not your friend. I can be friendly, certainly. But we have to maintain these clear boundaries. I meet with the board, but I'm not on the board. I can't be involved in the governance organization. It would be comfortable for me to do that. I'd love it. Universal power over all things. And that's actually the model that's, been handed down to me. When I first started practicing, that was literally told to me. The abbot should be a permanent, lifetime position. The abbot should have control over the board. If there are members who find or have an issue with what's going on in a Zen center, including and up to complete abuse and mistreatment and all that kind of stuff, the appropriate action is that that person leaves. The center belongs to the abbot. That's so. And I've seen how that's worked, or I've seen how that hasn't worked. And we've made changes here. And I've seen how trying to be friends with Zen students has worked and hasn't worked. And so we've made changes. And so as things move forward, things will get clearer and clearer. Things will change. And at one time or another, everybody's going to be uncomfortable with the change. Everyone's going to be uncomfortable with moving out of the ruts of what's been comfortable and what's been normal and what's been easy into something that pushes us, rubs up against us, and faces us in a direction we're really uncomfortable facing. And that's what Zen practice is. Riding that space, opening ourselves to that spaciousness where we are able to find support, find stability in the form, in the relationships that we have, but to not fall asleep, to not flip on the autopilot, to be awake, to turn on our own innate intelligence, our own innate wisdom, to make choices based on our own experiences and our own practice. If we're coming about practice or the center or our relationship with our teacher in a way that we're just looking for that the sweet spot where we're going to get it right, and we can just sort of like abide in that sort of sweet spot, then we're just turning Zen practice into the same thing that we do with everything else. Our job, our relationship, our home environment. And it's the fundamental position of Zen Buddhism that concept, that there is the place, the fixed, the self, is the source of our suffering, is the origin of our suffering. And it's fundamentally empty. Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.